Ethan, are we gonna die?
Look at me. Look at M.E. I will get you out of this, I swear.
Ethan, are we gonna die?
Look at me. Look at M.E. I will get you out of this, I swear.
I can't do this anymore, Ethan. I want to go home.
There is no home to go back to.
This is home now. Do you think anyone is even looking for us? They think we're dead.
Lost at sea for 4 years, the only survivor did the unthinkable to 3 stranded women. A Sway Tales original story. Was the kind of blue that makes you believe nothing bad can ever happen. 12 university students packed into a rented van outside Stockholm University, laughing too loud, music too high, sunscreen barely applied. They had all earned this, 3 brutal years of lectures, exams, and thesis papers. This trip was their reward, a private island off the coast, tucked between Iceland and the northern Atlantic. Exotic, remote, beautiful. Everything their privileged lives demanded. 3 men, 6 women, 1 hired boat, and not a single worry in the world. Ethan Cole was the kind of man who never went unnoticed. Broad shoulders, messy brown curls, a jawline that belonged in a magazine. He was a structural engineering major who had spent summers on his father's yacht, so naturally, he was the one who confidently assured everyone the weather looked fine. Beside him stood Sophia Laurent, French-born and impossibly graceful, daughter of a Paris fashion house. Next to her was Clara Hoffmann, German, fiercely intelligent, always the most composed woman in any room, and then Mia Rossi, Italian, warm, loud, and full of laughter that could fill a cathedral. These 3 women had never gone a single day without Wi-Fi, room service, or someone holding a door open for them. That was about to change. The party started the moment they boarded the hired vessel. Champagne appeared from someone's bag. A portable speaker blasted across the open water. They took photos. They danced on the deck. They toasted to freedom. Ethan stood at the bow watching the horizon. He noticed the clouds first, a dark bruise forming at the edge of the sky, low and heavy. He said something to the boat's hired captain. The old man squinted, then reached for his radio. Static, only static. "We should turn back," the captain said quietly. But the group voted against it. Majority wins. They were 20 minutes from the island. The storm looked far away. These things always passed. They were wrong. Within 40 minutes, the Atlantic became something unrecognizable. The waves rose like walls. Rain came sideways, cold as knives. The small vessel pitched and groaned, wood straining against water that had no mercy. Screaming replaced laughter. The champagne bottle shattered somewhere below deck. Ethan grabbed the emergency ropes and began lashing people to the railings, shouting over the wind. But the storm was louder than any human voice. Then the hull cracked. Not slowly. All at once. Water rushed in from below so fast it felt like the ocean had simply swallowed the floor. In the chaos, Ethan lost count of faces. He grabbed the nearest life ring and dove into the freezing black water, screaming names. Names that the wind swallowed whole. He swam for what felt like hours. When he finally dragged himself onto wet sand, bleeding from his temple, he lay on his back staring at a sky that had already begun to clear, as if the storm were innocent, as if nothing had happened at all. Then he heard coughing, then crying, then his name. Sophia was first. She had clung to a broken piece of the hull for nearly an hour before the current carried her to shore. Clara came next, half-conscious, her white blouse torn completely off one shoulder, whispering something in German that no one could hear. Mia arrived last. She had been underwater longer than any of them should survive, but she crawled onto the sand gasping, furious at the ocean, furious at the weather, furious at everything. 4 survivors. Ethan checked his phone. No signal, not one bar. He walked the entire shoreline holding it above his head. Nothing. The island was dense tropical jungle, surrounded by open water on every side, with no visible civilization, no buildings, no boats on the horizon. They were alone. The first week was the worst. Sophia Laurent, who had never once in 23 years slept without a thread count below 800, cried herself to sleep on bare jungle dirt. Clara, who had always been unshakable, sat by the water for an entire afternoon and simply stared. Mia screamed into the jungle until she had no voice left. They had nothing, no food, no tools, no shelter. Ethan forced himself to think like an engineer. He built a lean-to shelter from palm fronds. He found fresh water, a small stream cutting through the jungle interior. He learned which fruits were safe by watching birds eat first. He dug fire pits and learned to spark stones against dry bark. The women fought him. They fought the jungle, they fought each other. Sophia refused to touch anything without washing her hands first. Clara rationed every piece of fruit mathematically, furiously, convinced they'd run out. Mia threw the first coconut Ethan cracked open against a tree because she was angry, just angry, and needed something to break. But slowly, day by agonizing day, they adapted. Sophia learned to weave palm leaves into a sleeping mat. Clara built a system to collect rainwater. Mia discovered which roots, when boiled in rainwater, tasted almost like something edible. Their designer clothes rotted in the salt air and tropical humidity until they were barely recognizable rags, patched with whatever jungle materials they could find. They stopped being university students. They became survivors. The nights were the hardest part. There is a particular kind of darkness that lives in a jungle far from civilization, complete, soundless, pressing against you like something alive. Predators moved in the undergrowth. Strange birds called from above. Rain came without warning and soaked everything in minutes. On those nights they huddled together for warmth and survival. 4 people who had been strangers turned into something that no ordinary word could describe. They shared body heat, shared fear, shared grief for the friends they had lost in the ocean, friends whose names they still whispered some nights like prayers. What grew between them was never planned, never discussed. It was simply what happens when human beings are stripped of every layer civilization puts on them. When there is no social rule left, no audience, no consequence, just 4 people and the endless jungle and the terrifying possibility that no one was ever coming. By the 6th month, they had built something almost resembling a camp, a real shelter, a fire system, a food rotation, a life, small and fragile, but a life. By the 12th month, all 3 women knew. Sophia discovered it first, the nausea in the mornings that had nothing to do with bad fruit. She sat by the stream for a long time, hands pressed flat against her stomach, staring at her own reflection in the water. Then Clara. Then Mia. They told Ethan on the same afternoon, standing together at the edge of the beach while the sun set over the water. He sat down on the sand very slowly, like his legs had simply stopped working. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then Mia said in her broken, scratchy voice, "We are having babies on a deserted island." And somehow, impossibly, they all laughed. The kind of helpless laughter that lives right next to tears. The kind that says, we have nothing left but each other, so we might as well hold on. The pregnancies changed everything. Ethan became fiercely protective in ways he hadn't known he was capable of. He expanded the shelter, he found softer sleeping materials, he rationed the best fruits for the women. He stayed awake through entire nights watching for anything that might threaten them. Animal or weather or fate. The women were terrified. They were educated women who knew exactly how dangerous childbirth was without medical assistance, without clean conditions, without anything. Clara documented everything she could remember from a human biology elective she'd taken 2 years ago. Sophia held everyone's hand through the worst moments. Mia kept the mood from collapsing completely through sheer stubborn will. 3 babies were born on that island, all healthy, all loud, all miraculous, delivered by 4 people who had no idea what they were doing and somehow did it anyway. The jungle, which had tried so hard to break them, gave them this. 3.5 years after the shipwreck, a university research group from Cape Town, South Africa, was conducting an aerial survey of uninhabited northern Atlantic islands, when a thermal camera picked up what appeared to be human heat signatures in an area marked on all maps as uninhabited. The rescue team that landed on the island found 4 adults and 3 toddlers living in a remarkably organized jungle camp. Thin, sun-weathered, dressed in assembled plant fiber clothing, but alive. Completely, impossibly alive. The lead researcher filmed everything on her phone. She didn't know why. Instinct, maybe. She posted the video that night with a caption that said simply, "We found people." By morning, the video had been seen 4 million times. Identification took less than 48 hours. Sophia Laurent, missing, presumed dead, for 4 years. Her family had held a memorial service. Her father had donated a scholarship in her name. When her mother saw her daughter's face on a phone screen, older, hollow-cheeked, fierce-eyed, holding a toddler, She collapsed in the middle of her kitchen and didn't stop crying for 2 days. Clara Hoffman, Mia Rossi, Ethan Cole. All four had been declared legally dead within 18 months of the shipwreck. Now they were standing in a rescue facility wearing borrowed clothes, blinking under artificial lighting that felt almost violent after years of only firelight and sun, holding children who stared at the world with enormous curious eyes. Children who had never seen a ceiling before, never heard a car, never felt air conditioning. The world exploded. Press conferences, lawyers, DNA tests, tearful reunions broadcasts on international news. 4 wealthy European families, a French fashion dynasty, a German pharmaceutical empire, an Italian real estate family, and an American engineering firm, suddenly discovered they had grandchildren they didn't know existed, living proof of 4 years of unimaginable survival. The questions were endless. The cameras were relentless. The complications were real, but none of it. None of the noise and chaos and controversy. None of it could touch what those 4 people had built in that jungle. The kind of bond that only survives when it has already survived everything else. On the first night back in Stockholm, Sophia sat by a hotel window watching city lights she had dreamed about for 4 years. Her daughter slept in her arms, warm, safe, breathing. Outside, the world moved fast and bright and loud, the way it always had. She thought about the island, the stream, the firelight, the terrible nights and the strange mornings, and the life they had built from nothing. She pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead. Sway tales, real emotions, real stories.